everything available.
Great, great.
Hi, Liz.
Hi, how are you?
Good. I see you were in the other meeting as well. I recognize the other folks there.
Yeah.
Oh, hi, Patrick.
Patrick. Hi, Mark.
Well, I think everybody's here then.
Okay, you think this is everybody?
Yeah. So hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us at this really busy time with everybody getting ready for classes to start. I hope all of your preparations are going well. I have these moments of panic and realization of, oh my goodness, there's still a lot left to do. But we'll get there, right? So what our main focus today is to talk about assessment. We have two guests with us. So we have Dr. Lynette O'Stewart, who's the Director of Early Childhood Initiatives with the Levesque Institute. And then we have Brittany DePietro, who is the Impact Program Manager at the Levesque Institute. And, you know, many of you had expressed from the beginning of this FLC that assessment was something that you really wanted to dig into and learn more about. So I went to the experts on this. And so I think what they have to share will be very helpful for all of us. There are lots and lots of resources on the Canvas page now, and I hope that wasn't overwhelming. I tried over the summer to look for some resources and put them together, and the draft document that I sent you was my first attempt at trying to think through this and starting from a question of, when faculty start this work, what are the questions that they have? What kinds of resources are there? And I think with assessment, there's this million-dollar question of how do we do it in a way that's effective, but that also doesn't become overwhelming, because, you know, this can also be a huge time commitment, right? So I think what Lynette has put together for us will be helpful as a starting point. So I'll just turn it over to you. And
all right. You know what I'm thinking would be helpful? I'm going to have Brittany pull up our agenda and the slide presentation. But if we could go around and I could just learn a little bit about everybody who's in on the meeting that I'm not aware of, you know, what department they're in. If we could just kind of do that, Stephanie, that would be really helpful for me.
yeah, that sounds great.
So
let's see. I see.
You introduced us, and
so we have, let's see, Craig, and then Liz, Bill, Patrick, and Mark.
Okay, so Craig, maybe you could tell us what department you're in.
Okay, so as you said, like, my name is Craig. I'm in the Department of Economics and Finance in the College of Business.
Okay, welcome. Bill?
Hi, Lynette. Yeah, I'm Bill Cliff in biology. I'm also the interim director of our public health minor.
Okay. And Patrick?
I'm in the Department of Accounting with the College of Business.
All right, thank you. And Mark?
I'm Mark Gallo. Yes, I'm in the Department of Biology.
All right. Well, thank you. And Liz, I don't know if everybody knows you. I know we know you, but if you could tell us.
Sure. Liz Rusi in the Levesque Institute for Civic Engagement, but participating through the College of Education as an adjunct faculty.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, everyone. As Stephanie did introduce Brittany and I, although I oversee the early childhood initiatives, I've been affiliated with Niagara University for some time. I started as an adjunct in 2004 and then came here full-time in 2010. But I am involved in many other initiatives, grant-run initiatives. And also, we all work together as a team in the Levesque Institute. So we do help support each other in many of the endeavors that we have. So thank you, Stephanie, for introducing us and giving us an update. And now we're going to do a bit of a presentation. Brittany is going to assist me in that, on the results-based accountability of impact projects. Just to give you a little bit, Brittany, if we go to the next slide, I'll give you just a tad of information about the background. I did provide Stephanie with a great overview of RBA in a prior meeting, and I put together some resources and references. for her to share through the Canvas FLC that you have. But to give you a little bit of a background, RBA, results-based accountability, was developed by Mark Friedman of the Fiscal Policies Studies Institute in Santa Fe, New Mexico, in case you're interested in learning a little bit more and digging deeper. Prior to that, he was a senior associate with the Center for the Study of Social Policy in Washington, D.C. And really, what Mark put together is a very disciplined way of thinking about and taking action that can be used to improve the quality of life in communities, cities, counties, states, and nations. And it's taking a look at, as well, at improving the performance of programs using RBA. It's a very simple, plain language approach to measurement that puts the focus on the ends and works backwards to the means. So I'll bring that up again later in a portion of the presentation. But basically, we're taking a look at where we want to go. What is the outcome we want to achieve? And we can apply that to service projects. What is that outcome we want to achieve? And then how do we go about doing that? And we work our way backwards. So we've got a video that we're going to share. It's a little over 3 minutes long. It gives you a great overview. And then Brittany DePietro is going to give you a little bit more when we dig deeper into the population performance aspect and some definitions. And then I'll pull it together with the performance measures and then how we can apply the RBA framework for impact projects. Many grant foundations have worked and moved into this direction, and we're starting to see it in higher education. And the model works very well, and it's very simplistic. On a broader macro scale, for Stephanie and the work of the total service learning population of students and outcomes, and can be applied to more of a micro level with your individual courses and service projects. So thank you, Brittany. If we can go to the overview video.
If you want to improve the lives of people in your community and show the impact you've made, then results-based accountability is for you. Results-based accountability is a framework for planning and measuring outcomes for individuals and results for whole communities. If your program or service deals with large demographic groups or geographic areas and you're working with multiple partners, then it's population accountability. If your program or service deals with individuals or small groups and only works with a limited number of partners, it's performance accountability. Both population and performance accountability use a series of 7 questions to plan for, measure, and demonstrate real outcomes for people. The results-based accountability process is different because it helps you think about the outcome you want before you think about how you're going to achieve it. Most organizations focus on their outputs, the things they do, and don't have the tools to help them measure the outcomes for their clients or participants. Results-based accountability helps you focus on planning and measuring those outcomes, then using that information to set even better outcomes next time. This is a better way of working because it measures what's really important. Are people better off as a result of what you have done? Performance accountability measures the impact of a program or service by asking 3 simple questions. Number 1, how much did you do? The number of meetings, classes, referrals, workshops, etc. Number 2, how well did you do it? Quality of your service delivery. And number 3, most importantly, is anyone better off, and did the clients or participants benefit from the program or service? For whole populations, impact is measured with statistical data that reflects the result multiple partners want to achieve for whole communities, cities, or states. No matter how large or small your program or service is, Results-based accountability makes planning and measurement so simple that everyone can see the real outcomes of your work and how this is having a positive impact on the lives of people you work with every day. Results-based accountability was created by Mark Friedman. This video was created using materials from his book, Trying Hard is Not Good Enough. To find out more about how RBA can help you, contact Community Centres SA.
Okay, so that video just gives a very brief overview of what results-based accountability is looking to do, and then Lynette and I are going to just go a little bit deeper in explaining, and hopefully as we go on, you'll get some ideas of how maybe you could use this assessment method in your course for the projects that you will be working on with your students. So the first kind of topic that we'll talk about is population versus performance. And as the video mentioned, the population is really focusing on just kind of the whole group, an overarching kind of macro level of who we're hoping to serve. So an example could be for us, our students, we want all of our students to be engaged in project-based service or something along those lines. It could be just whole communities. It could be as large as countries. It's just really focusing on beyond just the client group we're working with. And then the performance, which is what we'll be focusing more on throughout this presentation, is the client population. And by client, that could be, if like at Heart, Love, and Soul, they talk about guests, right? Patrons of your service, kind of the target group that you're working with the project. And people who would be working with this group would be programs and agencies and service systems that are working together to really reach the overarching population result. So as an example, Lynette and I, and Liz actually as well, we learned a lot more about RBA when we received funding through the Department of Health for a program we had called Nurturing in the Neighborhood. And the Department of Health served as kind of that population. They wanted youth in New York to be ready for kindergarten. So they provided funding to various programs and projects in New York to help reach that overarching result. So our program assisted in Niagara Falls by providing a free program in a lower income area, so transportation wasn't a barrier, that put students into a school-like setting, and the kids learned about the structure of kindergarten, the activities that they would be participating in kindergarten. So our program helped to reach their overarching result of the readiness of the children in our area who participated in the program. Other programs focused on maybe more case management and connection to resources for parents. So they funded a bunch of little pieces to help reach their overarching population goal or the result that they were hoping to achieve. Performance accountability is the accountability for the programs or services that are enlisted to help with the overarching population result. So the most important performance measures are about the well-being of the client, consumer, individual, who these agencies are working with. And so the goal is to really say, we provide this service, we're doing all this work, but what is the real outcome of it? Why does it matter that we have opted to do this project? What is the outcome of the work we're doing? And performance measures are the means or strategies to help reach the outcome. So a couple of examples. So again, population accountability, larger scale, macro level results that we're hoping to achieve. So let's say for reducing child abuse in Erie County as an example. Performance accountability would come from the organizations that would be partnering with Erie County to help reach that goal. So hospitals, for example, would talk about the percent of screenings that resulted in preventative linkage. Schools would talk about the percent of students whose caregivers receive family support. Foster care programs can say this is the percentage of children who were unified with their birth parents. So these community agencies are reporting the results of their work, and again, all working together to reach that population result. And then for closer to home, at least for me, increasing access to healthy food in Niagara Falls. So in order for Niagara Falls to achieve this result, they would partner with healthy food initiatives and corner stores and hospitals. So healthy food initiatives can say, thanks to our work, this is the percentage of corner stores who now sell the fresh produce in lower income neighborhoods. Corner stores could partner and say, thanks to the increased marketing of the importance of healthy eating, this is the percentage of residents who are now purchasing healthy produce in our area. And it can go even deeper to hospitals saying, because of these efforts, the percentage of residents who have lower BMI, because now they're consuming nutritional foods that are now accessible in their area. So just again, a couple examples of how the pieces help to reach that overarching population result. And to talk a little bit about how we can be on our level of what we're participating in. So for us, our population is Niagara University. We are a program at Niagara University that is created to help them achieve some level of a population result. And one result we were going to kind of talk more about later as well is that this program helps Niagara University achieve the goal of having our students leave the university seeing themselves as agents of change in our community, right? So through the projects that are coming out of the faculty learning community, our students are getting hands-on work in the community. They're thinking critically about issues in the city of Niagara Falls and its surrounding areas, and they're leaving the university with this knowledge base that can help them as they graduate to continue the work and see themselves as agents of change. So you'll see the faculty learning community is a program helping the university to reach that goal. And the projects that are being developed and worked on, I use the new ones that were sent to Stephanie, are helping to reach that goal as well. And then also, and I'll pick on Dr. Urusi's project, these projects also help the university's goal of providing resources to the community. So Dr. Urusi, her project is to provide an enhanced virtual education in the Niagara Falls City School District. So by providing her knowledge base, the manpower of her students and the skill set of her students to the school district, she's helping to enhance the virtual education and the resources for the Niagara Falls City School District, and also adding a piece to Niagara University's goal of providing the resources to the community. Okay, a few definitions here. And you kept hearing me say population results or the outcome, and that's a condition of well-being for people in a place. So again, an overarching kind of macro level goal that a population has. So all children in New York are born healthy. All children in Niagara County are ready for school. Kind of big goals that obviously need a lot of pieces to help achieve them. Indicators or benchmarks are measures that help to quantify the achievement of a result. So the rate of low birth weight babies, that shows how close the population result is for all children being born healthy. As the rate of low birth weight babies goes down, they are beginning to achieve that all babies in New York being born healthy. And then also percent of children ready to enter kindergarten. As children show more readiness for kindergarten, it's contributing to this overarching outcome of all children in Niagara County being ready for school. And those two pieces are the ends, right? That's what we want to end up with. That's what we're hoping for. Performance measures, which we will go more in depth. Lynette will talk a lot more about these moving forward, are measures of how well a program or agency or service is working. So this could be customer results, right? The customer outcome. It's service delivery. And then it really focuses on three pieces. And again, we'll talk a little bit more about this, but how much, right? Like how many people have been served? How many screenings have been distributed through this program? How well? Did people stay in the program? Did attendance remain high? Did customers say that this program was helpful? And then the very important question of, is anybody better off? Again, why did we do this work in the first place? What difference did it actually make? And the performance measures are the means to get to the end. So a few examples. So a result, safe community. Again, very big picture. We want our community to be safe. An indicator could be the crime rate. How high is the crime rate in the city? And then we would partner with an agency such as the police department to do some work and report, their police response time. So the police response time has become quicker, therefore the crime rate is lower, and they're contributing to that overarching safe community result. Same with the educated workforce. If it indicated that a program says, this percentage of adults has received their GED because of the work we're doing, and it shows an increased adult literacy rate, it contributes to the educated workforce overarching goal. And same with the people with living wages and income. Percent of participants in job training who get and keep a living wage through such and such program contributes to the percent of people who are now having living wages, and again, contributing to the overarching goal that people will have a living wage and income.
All right, thank you, Brittany. Brittany tried to, and I think did a very good job showing us how we take the population that we're looking at, improving some quality of life, some quality indicator, and the various different populations with performance measure. So now when we take the performance, if we look at all performance measures for RBA, it basically is just involving two questions. How much did we do and how well did we do it? So if we go to the next slide, Brittany. All right, so I believe Stephanie provided for you in Canvas something that looked like a quadrant. And this is using the RBA quadrants. And we're going to dig a little deeper now. And the top portion there is looking at the inputs or the effort. How hard did we try? So the quantity, how much service did we deliver? And then the quality of that, how well did we deliver it? Which you can see there's a percentage icon there, and then we've got a numerical one under the quantity. So that is how we would measure, both with numerical under the first quadrant, quadrant 1, and then overlooking at the quality of it. If we go down below, output effect, is anybody better off? That's something we want to know. What was the change effect? How much change did we produce as a result of our efforts? And what quality of that change or effect did we produce? So if you can go a little bit deeper now into the next slide, we can take a look at an example. So if we're talking about an education program, and let's say it's within a high school, a community, let's say it's Niagara Falls, and the result we're looking for is students graduating on time. We could even apply that here at Niagara University. So if we look at our input or our effort, how hard we tried, we want to take a first look at how much did we do. So that would be the number of students in a program. So let's say we have a cohort of students that are expected to graduate at a certain time frame. So we take a look at that quantity. Then we go over to the next box, quality. How well did we deliver it? So here we can have a few different things we look at: the student-teacher ratio, the percentage of students who completed the program within a timeline. And then at the lower end there on the output effect, is anybody better off? How much change or effect did we produce? The number of youth with grade progression, so are they progressing to the next grade? The number of high school graduates, and then the number of ninth graders who graduate on time. Now, granted, you can have other indicators there, but those are some indicators of that output effect. Is anybody better off? I think you jumped ahead one too many. Okay. And then the quality of that change. So the percentage of the use. So we're taking what is in the one box in a numerical and we're putting it into a percentage. That's the only difference in that. Okay, Brittany. So the next one, if we now took that to the faculty learning community and we look at the larger picture. So we'll say Stephanie is looking at overseeing that faculty learning community. So as a whole, on the macro level, all of our students, we want them to be agents of change in our community. We want them to participate in service learning projects that are aligned to our mission. So within that larger focus, how much did we do? So we can say of all of our students, how many students participated in service learning projects? How well did we deliver it? So we can use this framework for the larger RBA model, applying it to the faculty learning community. But if we dig even deeper, so if we go to the next one, the next slide, Brittany, and we start to think about the framework within, oops, sorry, Brittany, back to the other one. The framework for the service learning projects, you can begin to start thinking about past service projects and current ones that you're thinking of considering moving forward, but thinking of this framework in those terms. And if we go to the next slide, there's a worksheet that we are going to provide for you, and I've included it here on the slides. But if you have your students start thinking about this service project and have that end in sight, and then working backwards, either individually or in small groups or teams, they can use this activity to determine in the beginning of their service project how much they plan to do. So how much do you do? How much does the team plan to do with clients, customers served, activities and services? And that's quadrant one. How well do they do it? Common measures of quality. What can be the common measures of quality or quality measures for each activity or service to begin to come up with some indicators? And then ultimately we will look at, is anyone better off? And both of those are done either numerically in the one box or in quadrant 3 or percentage wise. And this is an exercise they can go through depending on what their project is. And you can alter this slightly depending on what their specific project is. And the other piece is using that framework of, again, how much did we do? So that's counting. How well did we do it? Taking a look at the quantity of the process and the quality of the process, and is anyone better off? The next slide refers to something called turning the curve. Midway through the semester or midway through the service project, students can have a reflective midpoint check to see how they're doing in reaching their RBA, the results-based accountability. It's a self-check. So it's putting their finger on the pulse of where they are at in reaching the outcomes of the project. They can use charts, graphs, but it's asking the question for them really is, how are we doing? What is the data that we have so far telling us? Are we going in the right direction? We planned, we plan to do. Do we need to make changes to reach the desired outcome? Now, the question that's really important to ask where we're turning the curve activity is, if we keep going and doing what we're doing, we'll keep getting what we're getting. If we're not getting the result that we want and we're not, moving in that direction, then we need to make a change. We do that as professors sometimes in the middle of our course. We may have to make a change, or a pivot is the word that we've been hearing a lot now with, switching to the online learning format when we had COVID hit. But for the team, how do they pivot and make a change? What is the story behind the curve? The students can list a priority, a list order of the priority of the root causes influencing the curve or that baseline. What are the central causes of no change being made? If they're not moving toward that desired outcome, what can we do to make it different? Also, who are the players involved that they're working with? If the students are doing a group project, is everybody in the group pulling their weight? Maybe we need to tighten up our work together to reach the desired outcome. Maybe we need to work closer with somebody, whoever our point person is, or the people in the nonprofit organization or business that we're working with as part of our service learning. And what would it work to turn the curve? Do we need to turn the curve at all? Maybe they don't. Maybe they need to continue down the path they're on because they're headed in the right direction based on those indicators when they put their finger on the pulse of achieving their ultimate outcome. Or what do students propose they do to turn the curve? Are there new strategies they can implement? And then what do we propose to do to turn that curve? So listing any partners, if applicable, to propose to turn that curve. So it's an exercise they can go through to help put their finger on the pulse and make any necessary changes at that time. Next slide. I hope we're not moving too fast. We're trying to be very mindful of the time. We're open now to discussion and questions, and we will provide a handout for you for those exercises. And we certainly will have a follow-up if anybody would like that. If you want to go through that exercise as a professor, taking a service project from the past and applying that framework to kind of walk yourself through before you introduce it to students, we could even have a work session for that. But it's a great, very simplistic framework that can be applied to this in very simplistic terms. And there's one thing I want to point out. Keep in mind for something like this, all your students need are 2 or 3 goals. And within that, at the most 2 or 3 indicators. We don't need a lot of things. What happened with a lot of foundations when they would give out grants is places like us here or anywhere would put in all these grandiose goals. We're going to do all this stuff. And they would be so many, there was no way we were going to achieve every single one of them. So really, what happened is a lot of foundations met and they said, you know what we want to know? We want to know if our money that we gave organizations made a difference in a positive way. Is anybody better off because we have funded these projects? And in simplistic terms, all they want to know is how we did it, how much we did too, that's that quantity, you know, and how well did we do it? Is anybody better off from our efforts? So if we look at that very simple kind of approach, this model can be applied in so many ways to any discipline, to any course, and as well on a macro scale to the overarching FLC of all of the students on our campus, trying to engage as many as we can in these service learning opportunities. Then within those individual courses and individual projects, they can really be tailored to those outcomes that make sense for those projects.
Right.
So
and
Brittany and I are open to questions.
Yeah, I just also wanted to point out that, you know, the RBA activity sheet or the Turning the Curve worksheet, those could be really helpful. You know, sometimes it's difficult to grade projects like this. So those types of worksheets and encouraging that type of thinking with your students could be useful to make the grading a little bit less subjective and determine, you know, what they're thinking throughout their project. So I think those tools could potentially be useful.
You know, I'm glad you brought that up, Brittany. I wrote down 4 things here, and it's kind of a 4-pronged approach, and you could have it outlined with the service projects using the framework, but have planning, either individually or the team of students that are working on that project, establishing some measurements using the RBA framework and that worksheet or form we're going to give you, real outcomes, coming up with those outcomes, and then making that positive impact at the end. So you can have 3 pieces where they're planning out their projects using that form. They're doing the turning the curve reflective exercise midway through, and then they're doing a final where they're using the quadrants to show the the numbers, the percentages, those outcomes, if you will, with some qualitative, is anybody better off? Whether it's the organization or clients. So thoughts, does everybody think that this might be a good idea to apply to service projects? That was my hope in working with Stephanie, and then Brittany and I putting together the presentation, that in simplistic terms, we could come up with a uniform way to apply this framework to service learning.
I have a question, comment, concern, whatever you want to call it. This is Mark. I'll call it sustainability. So, you've made a positive impact, and, you don't wipe your hands and say, good, one and done. That the challenge, for some of these, especially because of the way that we're set up, that, if it's for a particular course, well, it's over, the students graduate, they go away. If it, and so this thing is, after doing all of these steps, which is good, but how do you maintain it? So sustainability of something, of good things when they're happening.
Yeah, that's a really great question, Mark, and it brings up something that we've been doing through a partnership we have with Pinnacle for some time. And we've had Vincentian scholars be involved with some service learning in their organization, looking at the timeline and history of the organization itself. We just met with Pinnacle last week, and we're looking for another student that can pick up where the previous student left off. So if we very carefully and with great intentionality work with these partners in the community so that we're turning the torch over to a new incoming group of students in a course the following year or the following semester, to continue to move forward and sustain those things. And sometimes projects evolve. So sometimes they are a project that is finished indeed, because maybe there is something that is finished, but then it could be a springboard to something else that evolves from that original project. So ultimately, through these partnerships in the community, and Brittany's been meeting with many organizations, and her and I met with Pinnacle last week. We're meeting with Cornell Cooperative Extension this week to create some of these ideas and opportunities for all of you. And I know she'll be helping to share that information. But Mark, you bring up a very good point, and it's all of our collective responsibility to make sure that we continue to explore ways to sustain, help them in the evolution of these projects, to continue those partnerships that Niagara University students have within the community so that we can move forward. So I think new projects will emerge as other ones bring closure to something that is a finished product, but some might be an ongoing kind of project that will need to be sustained. So they're all very unique. I don't think it's a one-size-fits-all approach. Stephanie or Brittany, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think, Mark, that really gets to the heart of the unique challenge of doing this work in a higher ed environment, just because of the reality of student schedules, right? And, they're here 4 years, they graduate. And so, Brittany, if you are putting some of these things together in a document that we could use, I don't know where on the graph it would fit, but I think that's a question that should really just be embedded in there in some way, because everybody has to really wrestle with it. And I just wanted to share what I saw as when Lynette first shared some of this with me, what I thought might be useful. I really like the idea of having students involved in the assessment from the beginning. And in fact, they could potentially be doing a lot of the assessment work for us, right, as part of the process. And we think of assessment as we grade our students' work. And there's certainly that part of it. And I put together a bunch of things on Canvas with that, and Brittany had shared some possible rubrics. But this question about how do we assess what we're actually doing in the project, and I thought, if students are part of that discussion at the beginning, they can really take ownership of it. Hopefully they can see the importance of quality, right? As we think about how do we get student buy-in that these types of assignments are worthwhile and they're not just the same as the other kinds of things that they're doing. Maybe if they can think through some of those questions about how do we say that we've really done a good job at the beginning, they might have maybe a deeper commitment. But also the turning the curve idea. I think many of these projects run into difficulties at some point, right? There's unexpected challenges. And as faculty, I know this is true of me, and I think it's true of a lot of faculty, right? We like to control the outcomes of the things that we do in our classes, and then things happen and they don't quite go the way we hope they're going to go. And so this is good language maybe to give students working on a project permission to acknowledge, right, that something's not going the way it should, or we're not seeing the outcomes that we should. And, you know, like you were saying, Brittany, you know, even kind of using this language as part of the grading process. At the end of the semester, the project may not be done the way it was anticipated, but if students have acknowledged that and thought through it, I think we could all consider that a win to a certain point, right? And I struggled with this a lot this summer, just even thinking about this FLC and the move online and what this all meant. And so that language was very helpful for me as well. So,
Stephanie, I'm glad you brought that up. You know, that's how the foundations that are using RBA really look at it with us too. Maybe we don't achieve the end numbers, so to speak, but we learned in the process and we made changes that actually did result in better outcomes than had we done nothing at that midpoint. So this was a reflective exercise. The funders of the project Brittany referenced, they took us through midway through the project in using the RBA framework, and more foundations are moving in this direction. And it makes for a very meaningful, reflective exercise to make that change. You know, it's that, you know, that saying, you know, if we always do what we've always done, we'll always be what we've always been. But sometimes we want to be something different. So I have to put forth different efforts and make those changes. So if we keep doing what we are doing, we'll keep getting what we're getting. So it has a really great opportunity for students to reflect on where they're at and making those adjustments accordingly. And that should be taken into account in the grading with the end goal, that maybe we don't just look at that final number of what that goal was, but, you know, how did we do, and is anybody better off? So we have to look at the bigger scheme of things. And the greatest thing is, you know, is anyone better off really because of our efforts? And we made those changes that were necessary.
And also, you know, in terms of sustainability, you know, a big piece of the faculty learning community is the hopes that, you know, once faculty do build this project-based learning into their coursework, that they will continue it past the faculty learning community. And RBA is a very long-term methodology too. You know, we're not gonna create a perfect virtual education library in one semester, you know, so you know, what's achieved this semester can go on to the future courses with different cohorts of students. You know, evaluation of what's been done and what needs to continue to be done to help achieve that overarching, you know, population result. So that's another piece that faculty buy-in of this project-based learning and incorporating into their coursework.
Yeah, I agree with that. You know, I think once you identify your population outcomes, so for me, I'm very passionate about literacy in the city of Niagara Falls. So it might not be that every semester my students are developing videos for an online library. That just happens to be the project this semester. But projects can end, and we can pick up new projects that still work to that long-term goal, that population outcome of, you know, are our students better off? Do they have more literacy skills? Are families more engaged with their children at home? You know, because some of these efforts. So when we talk about sustainability, I think looking at that larger population outcome can be a little bit more helpful than just thinking, how does this project continue on after my students, you know, graduate or this course ends? So that, you know, that's something that I am working through, just because I am involved with different groups of students, graduate students, undergrads, and that's the way that we're all able to kind of work towards that same goal of improving literacy in the city of Niagara Falls.
Thank you, Liz. So thoughts, do you like this concept? Do you like this methodology? Do you think it's a good fit for service learning projects? Just to get a little feedback of what Stephanie was thinking, and that's why she invited Brittany and I to be a part of this presentation today.
No, I think it's quite excellent, and I want to appreciate both of you for joining us today and for sharing all this information. It certainly gives us a lot to think about in terms of designing assessment tools for our projects going forward. One thing that kind of came to my mind when we were thinking about, you know, is anybody better off, and how would we measure that, or how would we look at that specific question? Certainly, I think first and foremost, the main concern has to be like the population or the group that we're trying, that, you know, each of our projects are trying to benefit or looking at. But I wonder if maybe beyond just that group, we should also maybe have some component of self-reflection for the students in terms of how they view themselves being better off. I mean, certainly there's the sustainability concern that Mark talked about before, but, you know, to some extent, you know, I would hope, or I'm guessing most of us would hope, that our students would leave this experience, leave Niagara, and that these experiences might, you know, have a transformational effect on them in terms of their actions in the community or in their professional lives going forward. So I would think that would be something else to add to, you know, that's the other dimension of, is anybody better off? It's also, are students better off, or how do they view this experience as impacting their own views or you know, goals for the future?
Yeah, Craig, that's excellent. Actually, Stephanie and I talked a little bit about that when we had a meeting previous to this, but you're absolutely right. As part of that reflective piece, you know, taking the other side. So are the people that we were trying to help in some way better off, but also how are we better off? And how do we see ourselves as that agent of change moving forward and continuing that mission that we learned here with the Vincentians here in Niagara University, and that whole concept of service learning and taking that into their career path. So I think it's great you just mentioned that. And this model does lend itself so nicely to that. Excellent comments, thank you.
So you just said a word, we, and I think there's another component to it, and that is us, the we being the faculty that are involved. Yeah. That, you know, so what kind of measurables? Well, you know, at the end of this, do we incorporate more of these into our other classes? Do we do more of these sorts of activities as a result of being a part of this FLC? So that's, you know, even another level of things that, you know, Stephanie, you might want to, you know, use as well. That, you know, Craig being a newer faculty member is just putting his, you know, his toes into the water, and the experience became something that influences or impacts the way that he teaches all of his courses, you know, what he considers as something that's powerful as part of his assessment or something like that. You know, but at any stage in your career, you know, people might get to a point and say, well, once I've made it to tenure, I can spend more time doing service, and not be so concerned about, you know, publications or, you know, whatever, you know. So there's those sorts of things as well that I don't think people normally think about measuring. They just think that, I don't know, that we, well, I'll just leave it at that.
Those are some great comments too, Mark. One of the things I'm thinking about, and if you dig a little deeper, you'll start to see some RBA applied in higher ed. And so there are opportunities to take your service projects with your courses that are embedded, and, you know, for scholarship and writing articles of things of that nature. I think that there definitely could be opportunities for that kind of growth, that you're going to get the service and the scholarship piece together with this model, with opportunities for faculty.
Yeah, and you know, both Craig and Mark, I appreciate those points. And maybe, I know when I try to do something innovative in my class, you put all this planning into it, and then you do it. And then honestly, by the end of the semester, when it's done, I'm just exhausted. And so having a framework, right, to say, okay, this is what I tried, did it work? And so maybe this grid, this matrix is a good way to do that, to develop some kind of an instrument, not to share a report to anybody, right, but just for our own use, right, to think about if we do it again, or, you know, maybe we do report it, right? If you are putting together your portfolio for tenure, right, and you want to show the quality of your teaching, and if you've done some kind of an assessment like this on the work that you've done, right, to show that you not only did something that was innovative, but you thought very deeply about the outcome, right? That could be a really wonderful thing to include.
Mm-hmm. Sounds good. Anybody else? Brittany and I will be happy to for a follow-up if you know, you all are interested in going through that exercise, even with one of the service projects, to walk yourself through it as if you're a student maybe, and how that you can then explain it to your students. moving forward, that might be an idea, and then we could regroup at some point and have almost like a little work session and talk about it. We did that a little bit in a training that Liz and Brittany and I attended with RBA last year in using this framework and methodology. So that's a suggestion as one. And there might be things you think about afterwards, and feel free to email Brittany or me if you want at any time. And I will continue to share some resources with Stephanie so that you have a nice folder. I gave her some things already. If you really like RBA, you know, down the road you can dig even deeper than this. This is like a surface level use of RBA, but there are more in-depth kind of things you can do moving forward. If you really find you love this framework, you can even dig deeper. You can become like a certified RBA trainer too. They have such a thing, which we know some. So you might really find that you like it a lot.
That was one of the other things that appealed to me about this, is we think about service learning as a way for students to build skills that are transferable to different career paths, right? If this is a method that nonprofits are using, for example, right, then it could be helpful for a student if they've gone through this process and are familiar with it, if they're in a job interview and they have to talk about a substantial learning experience, right? And to be able to say, I have some experience with this and I am familiar with the language. I mean, that could be a really powerful thing.
I think you're right on with that, Stephanie, because I can't tell you how many of the foundations we've worked with over the years that back in 2010, they weren't using RBA, are using RBA now. And, you know, within their, you know, organizations, they have people that have business degrees, you know, for some of the fiscal kinds of people working there. They have project officers that work in some of these organizations. So you're right. This, if they're writing grants in the future and that program uses an RBA, you'll have to demonstrate in the grant how you're going to measure those outcomes using this model. So I think there can be a really great opportunity for the students in gaining that language and that experience using the framework.
So with the resources that I put on Canvas, there was this just kind of straightforward document, and there was a graphic of the 4 quadrants that I think are a great place to start. There was also one of the things that Lynette had shared was the Stan Duncan article, The 4 Components of Effective Collective Impact, that talks about RBA, but also I thought just had a lot of really good things if you wanted to have conversations with students about setting expectations, working with community partners, and things to keep in mind, and how to, you know, things that you might want to watch out for. I think that would be interesting to share with students and have them read and have them discuss. So that is up there. And then again, a bunch of other really, really great resources. And then, you know, starting kind of from the other side of things, there was the Self-Directed Guide to Designing Courses for Significant Learning by LD Fink. I put that up there as well. And there's a lot, if you're just trying to think about how to even develop SLOs that describe the types of, I think kind of what Craig was getting at, the kinds of things that we want students to get out of this experience that aren't easily quantifiable. There were some good suggestions of places that you might start there. So, you know, feel free to use any of those resources. If you looked at the guide I put together, if there's specific questions you have that you want more information on, I could help you track down the resources that might be helpful to fill in any of those gaps. Brittany, did you have any updates or thoughts on just what's going on with the Levesque Institute, or how we could work with you this semester?
First, I just want to say, you know, as if the FLC and trying to figure out how to incorporate project-based learning into your course wasn't enough. Everything is remote because of this pandemic. So that's definitely something our office is trying to tackle university-wide, is just finding remote opportunities for our students and hoping, you know, students themselves or professors are interested in building projects that are remote. So that's been a goal of impact this year. And I was really, you know, excited to see in the updates that were sent to Stephanie that a lot of the projects did lend themselves to adjusting for this semester in this group. So that's wonderful. The only thing I can offer, aside from assistance with RBA and assessment between Lynette and myself, any other assistance that might be needed, connection to community partners, presentations to your students regarding anything surrounding the project, please feel free to reach out to me. If I myself can't help, I'll find the right person who can. And just, you know, continue to consider us a good resource throughout this cohort.
Yeah, that reminds me, Brittany, I know for Bill and Patrick in particular, you really wanted some help with the overview of the community, right? And background on Niagara Falls. So Brittany and I talked about that, and so she can help you with that.
Yep, absolutely. Yep.
So when you said everything's online, do you mean that students will not be allowed to do projects with any organization, like, you know, be in person, to be there?
Yeah, so the University Restart Plan has called for all student service to be remote. So especially anything going through the impact office, we will not be having students be sent out. It's meant to be university-wide. I'm not sure if they're making exceptions for smaller groups of students, but as far as our office has been told, no in-person service is going to happen to keep you know, students on campus as much as possible this year.
I just want to add though too, that's where Brittany has been meeting with various community partners. I've been a part of some of those meetings and will continue to be, as we're exploring ways that students can have service learning remotely in these organizations. So we're trying to create a robust, you know, inventory of opportunities for the students so that we can meet that at this time. It'll be reassessed later on once we see where we're at with COVID, but that was the decision that was made for this semester.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we're facing a reality of not, you know, as you were talking, Brittany, it's not just turning a curve, it is doing one of those like hairpin turns on the side of a mountain, right? With a little margin on either side. I mean, it's a big challenge. I did put up some resources on the Canvas page specifically about project-based learning in a virtual environment. So, you know, there's some things there that you can look at.
Anything else before we wrap things up?
Well, thank you so much, Lynette and Brittany, for joining us and for helping us think a little bit differently about how we might assess the work that our students are doing. And I know I have some things to think about for follow-up. And just everybody, as you're working on your fall plans, please keep Brittany posted. Keep me posted if there's anything that you need help with. Just let us know. Any last thoughts, questions, things that people want clarification on? We good?
All right, well, stay well. It was our pleasure. And we're here to follow up should that be something you're interested in moving forward. We threw a lot at you all at once, but I think you'll see how it fits so nicely. And we had a really great discussion. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye, everyone.